Hello, everyone of Facebook and YouTube gatherings. We are here today with Kristina Hill, and we will be talking about social emotional learning and the arts. And she is our Appel Farms representative, and I'll pass it over to her to introduce herself much better than I ever could.
Thanks, Jocelyn. I'm Kristina Hill. I am Appel Farm's Arts Integration and STEAM Education Director. I am on our programs team, and I develop and oversee and do all sorts of things for our arts educational programming. That's my introduction.
Awesome. So today, Appel Farm has given us a video that we will be screening in a second. But before that, everyone who is watching on both Facebook and YouTube, please put questions in the comments or greetings or well-beings or whatever, and I will show them on the screen and we will answer them live. So yeah, please engage. So we will be putting the video up now. So sorry. You would imagine by how many millions of these I've done that I wouldn't mess it up, but here I am. The audio did not come through. I will be setting it up right now. So sorry. Okay. And
Hi, my name is Eric James Montgomery, and welcome to Social Justice Through the Lens of Photography. I am a professional photographer. I've been a photographer now for 30 years. Most of my photographs deal with what we call fine art photography, which is photography you would find in art galleries, art shows, exhibitions, things of that nature. My subject matter really focuses on social justice and on artivism, which is art and activism. Most of my artwork have been focusing on the plights of poor people, social injustice, and racism. The images that I create really holds up a mirror to the day and times that we live in, and it's to tell the world, take a look and see what we're doing. Through the vehicle of photography, I've been able to articulate my innermost feelings about what's going on in this world, the good, the bad, and the ugly. When I first started doing photography, it was back in 1988, 89, and there weren't any digital photography back then. it was all film photography. So if I took some pictures, I was limited to 24 or 36 photographs per roll of film. Then I would have to change the roll and start all over again. Now with the advent of digital photography and the accessibility for everybody around the world to see each other's photographs, videos, cat videos, all of that, it's a new day and time. And in that, it's an important day and time because we're able to share important images with everybody around the world. Photography as an art form has been in existence since 1826. It began as a way to visually document the world we live in. Speaking of document, there's a genre of photography called documentary photography that is defined as a style of photography that provides a straightforward and accurate representation of people, places, objects, and events that are happening at the present moment. There are two documentary photographers I will introduce you to in this session. Their names are Lewis Hine and Gordon Parks. They both use photography to inform people of the injustices experienced by children working in factories and of Black people living in poverty. We call this social justice. Social justice is the view that everyone deserves equal economic, political, and social rights and opportunities. Social justice aims to open the doors of access and opportunity for everyone, particularly those in the greatest need. Starting today and continuing for the next 6 sessions, we will explore the intersection of social justice and photography. We will eventually create social justice posters from our own photographs like we see here. Are you ready to impact the world through the arts? Then come follow me.
Very nice. So, do you want to give us a little, just like a little preview of like what this like means? So, what is social emotional learning? Just define it for everyone in the audience. Even though I imagine most people who are here, they understand it already.
Yeah, well, so I'll give you a little background to like Eric and the like whole reason for that video, and just kind of put it in context for everybody. So when we were developing our summer programming, it was, right after distance learning had started, and we were recognizing that our kids, our students, and our own like children were struggling. They were struggling to connect. They weren't super engaged, and they were missing on social interaction. I think we were all missing social interaction at the start of all this quarantining, and we decided that our programming should have a social emotional learning focus. And social emotional learning is it's a process through which kids and adults too, and just humans in general, learn to identify and manage their emotions, and develop relationships, and make responsible decisions, and achieve goals and set goals. So it's really just about connecting and growing as human beings. And in a time when that it didn't feel to us like that people were scrambling so much, it didn't feel like that was the focus at the end of the school year. In the spring, it was about wrapping up work and our kids handing in assignments, and are we grading them, and are we testing? And everyone was in this sort of pre-trauma state, and people were really struggling. It was clear really quickly that that is what our focus was going to be. And of course, the state of New Jersey was putting, and Arts in New Jersey was putting all this focus on social emotional learning at the time as well. So it just seemed right. So when we were developing our summer program, which is part of it was Art in the Making, we decided that this was the whole point, that, you know, kids would get together and they would create art together. But most importantly, they would connect and they would socialize online and they would develop relationships. And if they made art that they displayed, great. But if they didn't make any kind of exhibitable art, that was also great, because the art was in the making, right? It was in the doing, it was in the interacting, it was in the getting together. And it was great. I mean, we had great success with that program.
What was the turnout like? And did you see like a progression in people's, like the way they felt? Because I would imagine when I would enter into something like that, when I first started with all of like the virtual stuff, I was like, this is going to be terrible. Like, it's not going to be the same. And then when I engaged with stuff like that, I was really happy with it, and I felt very fulfilled with it. So did you see any progression with the way the teenagers and younger felt about themselves and about their art through this program?
Yeah, definitely. We use Discord as a platform, which we chose because it has a very social aspect to it. It's a little bit like Facebook, Instagram-y kind of way of just exchanging information. And there's this natural connection that can happen through the chats. And then there are also video channels, which make it a lot like Zoom. But so we chose Discord, which I think, as with any new platform, there were definitely hurdles at the start. But a lot of our kids were already on Discord because it is a popular gaming platform. And so really, I think it was the adults who maybe struggled a little bit getting Discord down. But that all just happened, they moved through it so quickly, like the hurdles. And then it just became like them showing up every week. And I think we were pleasantly surprised at the turnout weekly. Kids did turn up and they did their work. And it was just this really like at your own pace, meeting kids where they're at kind of platform. And that if kids had their videos off, that was fine. If kids had their videos on, that was fine. If kids were like moving around while they were drawing, that was fine. Like, we had this very like anything kind of goes, just so long as you're engaging. And when we were training our teaching artists, we stressed the importance of modeling social emotional learning, because it's not about teaching social emotional learning. It is about modeling it and doing it yourself in the hopes that the students will pick up on it. And so we were super intentional in our language when we were training, and we were super intentional in the goals for the teaching artists as well, in that they would be consistently modeling self-awareness and modeling decision-making and modeling empathy and modeling all the components of social emotional awareness. And also the emphasis was about participation is not engagement, right? And so just because a kid shows up to an online class doesn't mean you're engaging them. And just because a kid doesn't show up to an online class doesn't mean they're not engaged in their own way. And I think that that's really difficult it's a difficult line to walk with these online platforms during like distance learning and hybrid learning. It's hard to, you think like camera on, face here, a kid is engaged, but maybe not so much. And maybe the kid who's camera off and you can hear them humming is actually totally engaged, but just not like showing up. So just trying to, walk that line and figure that out, and be open about how kids engage.
Well, it's just like it is with class when kids are tapping, they may be tapping because their brain is doing something so they can focus better. And then there's some people who are completely still, but they're like asleep.
Yeah.
So it's exactly the same, except for it's like magnified because you need to see them and you need to keep eyes on them every single time.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So Lisa said it's challenging to read if a kid is engaged. How would you? I understand you just said it was challenging, but how would you, as a teacher, as a guidance person, what would you see and think? Oh, that child is engaged.
That's a great question. And I do agree that that is a challenge. I mean, I think there are levels to it. I don't think you can take anything at face value. I think that, a kid, like I said, having their camera off, but then they turn in their assignment and it's amazing, right? But you thinking in the moment, you're thinking, oh, this kid has checked out, or this kid has turned their camera off and they're playing a video game, or they're doing something totally different. I think that we in this strange time as educators have to make that extra connection. I think that it is about us, checking in. It's like all those videos that were super popular like last year of like teachers having like various handshakes, right? When kids, that's amazing. That's super amazing. So like, what is the new like handshake when you enter a classroom? Well, we don't have that. So maybe it's that you are sending a text or an email or a video check-in to your kids to do that like 2-minute, 1-minute, 30-second check-in to see if they were in your class or how they were engaging. And even to the kid who appears to be there, right? I mean, we know that our like quietest, most compliant kids in a classroom sometimes are the most, the most checked out. And then you do still have to sit with them. It's hard to remember to sit with those kids when you're in class, because you think like, oh, well, they're doing the thing, so they're fine, but they may need you the most as well. And absolutely, I saw Lisa's comment. We do, like, we need to remember that kids have all sorts of learning styles. And I do think that's why we pointed out some of those things in Eric's video, was that he put up visuals, right? And he said his words, and he didn't have like too much of a distracting background. And I also think like there is this element of keeping it exciting and keeping it fun for the kids as well. Like, maybe day one, I'm here in my little art nook that's really messy, but then day two, it's like, well, where is Miss Kristina going to be on day two? Maybe she's streaming from the kitchen floor. Maybe she's in the garage. Like, who knows? Like, I think there has to be a fun connection and a personal connection. I also, I often see these videos of teachers teaching, and it's like this like nice background and everything's like pristine, but it's like, that's how real is that? Like, it's great. And if that works for you, that's great. But also like, I'm happy to be like, my house is so messy right now because I am not only teaching remotely, but my kid is learning remotely. Like, I think it is okay to be real and to be like, I am struggling and I am having a difficult time, and we can get through this together. Like there's value to just being who you are in that moment. And that is modeling social emotional learning, right? Like, I'm having a hard time, but I'm here. And I'm here because I want to be with you and I want us to learn together. And I do think like the differentiation of learning styles is one of the trickiest things for virtual learning. I think with the arts, it's easier, maybe. I don't know, maybe because I'm an arts teacher, but I feel like it's easier to get kids moving and up and doing quirky, fun things. But I would challenge, classroom teachers to do that too, and to let them just be silly and move around. And, not everyone has to be on mute all the time, and they need to make noises, and they need to move around. And, I don't know. I see a lot of value in letting kids just do and figuring it out.
Absolutely. It demands creativity from the teachers as well as the children, and that's what really tested certain teachers. So you would see when we would go on whether they would just be monologuing at us or it would be a dialogue. You would see that difference, to use some theater terms. It's too big to post. Oh, there we go. But that was something I was thinking, was that it demands creativity from the teachers as well as the students, which is tricky, and that's very hard. But it is part of the it's part of a teacher's job, I would say. Would you agree?
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, like, it's tricky, but it's so exciting. Like, I think that this is an amazing time of opportunity, and a time to kind of flip this narrative of like our schools are lacking in creativity. It's like all bets are off now, right? I mean, nobody expected to be here. Nobody expected that this is what learning would look like, and so really, all bets are off, and like you became, I said this recently to teachers. We became teachers for a reason. Like, we are creative by nature. We are energetic. We are excited about engaging. We are excited about facilitating and co-learning. I think most teachers are lifelong learners themselves. They don't want to stay stagnant, right? And then sometimes, or oftentimes, the public education system forces teachers into this like path, and you do, everything becomes very rote and it becomes very scripted, right? And then of course it's going to take courage, and it's going to take a leap. But I think this idea that like you get to do what you want again and it gets to be this fun, think outside the box, do something creative. And I feel like I've seen it. I have a lot of teachers, in my Facebook feed, and everyone's making these super cool interactive classrooms on Google Slides. And I'm like, you didn't know how to do this. Like, you just taught yourself a new skill. You're learning how to use Zoom. You're learning how to make Google Slides interactive. You're learning, like, you're teaching yourself all these new things. And that's exciting. And I think that it's just such an opportunity to be creative, and we should be saying, I get to be creative, and this is amazing. So I'd like to encourage flipping that narrative a little bit, that it's hard. It is hard, but our jobs are always hard. It's hard to be a teacher. It's not easy. And so how great is it that we get to be a more creative teacher, or a more excited teacher, or a more think outside the box kind of teacher,
So a question from Arts at NJ. I think it's probably Priscilla. So she said, what would you say to parents that think arts education is optional right now?
Oh, I would have so much to say. I would say a lot first to like a coworker or a friend, and then I would say like a more polished, refined version to said parent. But I'll just say the unpolished version maybe now. I mean, I think that I would like to think we all who are here probably know that is super false, right? And humans have been making art since the beginning of time. We were dancing before we were, doing other things. Like we were doing cave drawings on the wall. Like, art is a basic means of communication, and a basic way for us to connect. And in a time when we're struggling to connect, it is definitely more important than ever, because it is innate in us, and it is something that we all can do. And it's an access point. It's an entry point for kids. It is a way to get kids excited and interested in learning. My biggest fear as a parent during distance learning last year was my 6-year-old, who loves to learn, who has always loved to learn, wouldn't touch a computer, wouldn't go near a tablet, was like, no, like, I don't want to do this, was crying. It was an argument. It was a fight. And I looked at that really seriously, like, that was heartbreaking to me. And I just think, like, the arts it levels the playing field. Anyone can jump in and create and connect, and then the learning will always come. I mean, the play has to come first, the playing, the creating, the experimenting, and the learning will come. The learning will always come. And right now, what's more important, and is that your kid is connected and they're creating something and they're experimenting and they're playing and they're socializing, or that they're learning 2+2. Like, all they need to do is learn like a 4 count in dance. I don't know anything about dance. I'm making this up, but like, you know, like they'll learn 2+2 somehow, but are they going to be expressing themselves? Are they going to be, I don't know, adjusting and processing? They need to be processing this time. We all need to be processing the time. I mean, we need our educators, adults, big humans. We need art just as much as the little humans do. We need to create, and we need to, you know, be in touch with ourselves and our feelings. And I feel like art is it's just such a great equalizer. And it saddens me that a lot of people think that like you have, like, it's some kind of a talent. But it's not. It's just about being creative and making creative choices and letting yourself play and letting yourself fail and letting yourself try. And, you know, I think that I don't know, I would feel really sad, and I would want to have coffee with that parent a lot. And I would have a lot of conversations about the importance of play and creativity.
I would say this is like a debate that has been in the education system since we were like, oh, we should educate children, because it's something that I've been saying a lot, and something which you said as well, is that it's innate and it's human, and art makes such a human, it makes a human of us all, whether you're just engaging with it because you don't have the ability to draw as well as another person and your talent is elsewhere, or you're making it. It shows your humanity, and that's something that is lacking in the school system. Would you agree? It's set up to be a factory. So
yes. So it's so funny because I'm taking this class for my in my master's program right now, and it's called Creativity in Crisis, and it could not have come at a better time. And one of for my assignment today, I was watching a Sir Ken Robinson video, which like I've seen you know, a bunch of times, but I wrote down like one of the things he said that like really made me so sad, and I had heard it before, but for some reason in this time and in this place, it just upset me more. And I'm trying to find it because I wrote it down here. Oh, he said, we have this whole set of brilliant, creative people who think that they're not, just because the thing that they were good at in school wasn't valued and could have possibly been stigmatized. And I just was reflecting on that so much today. And in a lot of ways, I think I connect with that because I feel like I felt that way in school a little bit. Like, you know, I was super creative and I was super interested in like weird things. And I would rather watch the fish tank than learn like 2+2. Like, I really was not a very connected student. And that didn't mean I wasn't smart. That didn't mean I, you know, wouldn't amount to anything. But I think we put kids on this track of, you know, the hierarchy of our subjects and the way that we weight, even that we put visual arts and music ahead of like dance and theater in schools. Very few schools have dance programs, you know. I think that like I would love to see, I have this like, I think I'm tangenting a lot and I apologize, but I have this like dream that this whole time period that we're in right now will just shake up the entire education system, and will like come out of this where like every kid is like taking dance, music, theater, and all sorts of visual arts, and then they'll have like math as an elective, and like science will be a special. I don't know. I don't necessarily believe that. I just think everything should have equal weight and it should be just as valued. And science should not be a special. I feel like I'm going to have to eat those words at some point. Someone's going to be like, she said science should be a special. I love science. I just mean that everything should have like equal weight. It should be, it's so sad to me. And I do feel like, because we're recognizing this, we're seeing everyone is sharing all these videos of people singing and people dancing and quietly, you know, you have the couch choirs instead of the pub choirs, right? Like everyone is connecting through the arts right now. And I'm praying, I'm hoping that people are starting to see the value in when we're in this terrible time and everyone is feeling like they're struggling in some way. they're connecting to art somehow. And I would feel really sad if we come out of this and that just gets forgotten and we go back to being, this educational machine that values testing and values right and wrong and values A's and, doesn't rethink things a little bit or a lot.
So to continue on, when you were talking about how you'd rather look at a fish tank than learn 2 + 2, I totally get it. The only reason I was good in school was because I wanted to be good at everything, which is a ridiculous proposition, but I still want to.
That's not ridiculous. It's okay that you want to be good at everything.
But one of Arts Ed NJ asks, what is your because of arts ed story? And that is basically asking, how has arts education impacted your life? How did you end up here? How have you found your photography love?
That is such a loaded question. So I'm going to try to answer it really succinctly. I think, like, personally, I've never taken a logical path. If my mom was watching, she would be like, oh yeah, no, never. I never just did things, and I still don't do things in a very logical way, quote unquote logical. And I was always a theater kid. I was always a music kid. I had amazing music and theater teachers. I still, try to have dinner with them every now and then. Like, they are in my life, and they shaped me, and my theater friends shaped me. I mean, I would have taken so many different paths if I didn't have my, like, grounding theater people. They were the people who also looked at fish tanks all day, right? Like, they were the people who just accepted you for who you were. And that was, at certain times in my life, that was life-saving, really. And then, I don't know, I took all these wacky career paths, but recently, a coworker asked a question, which is like, it was about, like, the thread, like, in all the things you've done in your life, what has been the thread? And I loved that question. And really, for me, it's been connection. I mean, all of the things and curiosity, I'd say, like, all the things I've done career-wise after college have always just involved communicating. And I was a speech therapist for a good amount of time. And then I decided I'm going to be a photographer. And I, like, literally quit my job one day and was like, I'm just going to be a photographer. And I didn't even have a camera. I was like, this is what I'm going to do. And then I did. I was a photographer for a whole bunch of years. And then I was like, I want to be an art teacher now. Like, I think, but in all of those things, it was always about relationships. It was always about people. It was always about engaging with people and the creativity in other people. I love sparking creativity in other people. I just love jobs where you get to be playful and you get to explore things and learn things and encourage other people to explore and to learn. And I think that I feel very lucky. So I went to school in New Jersey. I grew up in New Jersey, and my high school had a great arts program. We did. And if it weren't for the arts classes I took in high school, I don't know that I would have gone on this path. I was academic. I did take AP classes in high school, believe it or not. I moved away from the fish tank and then I was like you, I just wanted to be really good at things. And I was like, oh, I can be in an AP class. I'm going to be the best at that. But, like, I still took all my theater classes, and I still did after school theater, and I still took 0 period choir, which was a thing. And I skipped lunch to take another choir. And we had all of these arts opportunities when I got to high school that I'm super grateful for. I wouldn't have, continued on this wacky, weird path that got me to a job that I love if it wasn't for all of these winding things. But all of them did involve the arts and connecting and creativity and staying playful and being creative and being creative with other people. And I think that creative spark that flies really fuels me. And in this time, I really do feel like it's an opportunity for us to reignite that spark and to get more creative and to try different things, I don't know if that answered the question, but
no, you did. You explained where you came from and where you're coming from and what your path was, it was very inspirational, that idea of just, like, stopping what you're doing. I have a very, obviously less less serious, I guess, because I didn't quit my job, but I completely switched from theater over to a film and props like my sophomore year. I just came in one day, like I came in like the first day of school, and my coach could tell you this. He'd be like, yeah, she just like switched, and then she was just like good at it, and that was that.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
But good for you for taking a
you.
risk, right? And just like,
Yeah.
I'm just going to jump in and see what happens. And I think like the cool thing is like, because of Arts Ed story, I love that I get to, it is a really nice full circle moment when I realize that I may be having the same impact that those arts teachers that really did shape me in high school, you know, that I may possibly be doing that for kids that I'm teaching right now. That's a cool thing to think about. And it feels like, you know, it feels nice to know that you are giving these opportunities to kids who might really need them.
Absolutely. It's rewarding, and I like the idea. I like using the term full circle because that's what it is. It is very cinematic, I guess, in a way. It's beautiful, and thank you for teaching, and thank you to all the arts teachers who are still engaging with this thing that they love because it's so important.
Yeah.
So we have a couple more minutes left, so we're gonna answer one more question, and then we're gonna wrap it up if that's okay.
Yeah.
So it was a question I had up earlier, and then we got into a good conversation, so I took it off, but I'll put it back up now.
Ugh. All children are creative, but many adults are not. When do children typically begin to think of creative as something that's not for them? So I have two answers to this question. The first answer is like statistically, it's between, I think, 3rd and 5th grade. And I in my creativity and crisis class, I was just reading about the statistics on this. And I have a theory about it that didn't align with the article's theory, which is that like that is around the time when kids, there is a little bit of a stigma attached to playing, like free play. And, you know, that's when kids like put away their toys and like Barbies aren't cool. Right. And so maybe that's part of it. Also, that's when state testing, I think, becomes like more of a thing. And so I wonder if creativity in the classroom is discouraged or not even discouraged, which is not taught, that it becomes about right and wrong. It becomes about black and white. It becomes about this will be right on the test and this will be wrong. And there's no gray area anymore. And a lot of art falls in that gray area, right? Like it's about making these decisions and playing and doing fun things. And so that's my like academic answer is like, you know, I think it is kind of just forced out of us when we hit around that age. And I think it gets harder and harder because schools are so focused on getting into college, right? And to, you know, getting the test scores, and there is less room for that fun and that creativity and that play. And you might have like 1 or 2 teachers along the line who are really good at it, and you're like, oh, I love that teacher. But like ultimately, it's not the thing anymore. And I feel like, yes, so I saw what Lisa said, and that is super true. It is around that age that they start to become more self-conscious and more not wanting to take those risks in front of their peers and not wanting to put themselves out there in that way and second guess. I'm teaching right now 5th, 6th, and 7th graders, and they're constantly asking me things like, can I use green? And I'm like, of course you can green. Like, why would you even ask me that? And like, but there's a lot of second guessing their own ideas, and they're, you know, they're very concerned with how they're perceived and whether they're right, you know? And I also think I had like a bigger answer to Zanji's question about losing our creativity. I don't know. I know Zanji, so we can talk about this another time. But I really do think it's a lot to do with school and the value we place on academics over creativity. I mean, some of our most like really revolutionary creatives didn't go to school or didn't finish school, right? Or didn't fit in at school. You hear that a lot. I feel like I hear a lot of crazy creative humans being like, oh, I was terrible in school, right? And that doesn't mean they weren't geniuses in school. It means that their genius wasn't valued in school. And that's hugely problematic if that is what we're doing, if we're taking these kids who kids who can't sit still. This was like an example from the video I watched today. This, child, it was like in the 30s, and he tells this story about she couldn't sit still, and the teacher like called the mom, and the mom took the kid to a doctor. And like nowadays she probably would have been like an ADD kid, and they would have like come up with a 504 like plan to help her stay still. But like what the doctor did was put on music, and she would like dance, and he was like, she's a dancer, and that's why she can't sit still. And they like enrolled her in dance classes, and she went on to choreograph cats. And like it was like this magical story about how are we really seeing our kids for their potential? Are we really seeing, we place so much value on intelligence, but academic intelligence, and absolutely creativity. I saw Lisa's comment, creativity is an intelligence. And I don't think that the value is put there. And I think that is why kids don't, that's why as adults, we don't so easily exhibit our creativity. Or I don't think it's just creativity. It's like our quirks, right? Or our like neurodivergence, or anything we do that might not be socially acceptable in a workplace. We stifle that too, because we are so conditioned to conform, and we think there's a way. We're taught, it's modeled. And that is why I kept telling like our instructors, you have to model this, you have to model this. It is okay to stand in front of a group of people and just be so real and be completely yourself, and spill your coffee. That's me. I always spill my coffee. Spill your coffee, make a mistake, say the wrong word, and then be like, oh, I didn't do this right. Or because I don't think kids get that very often. I don't think they get to see people just be real and learn like, oh, that's okay when you're a grown up. Like, oh, you can make a mistake when you're a grown up. You can bounce a check when you're a grown up. Like, I think that as kids, we get this perception that grown-ups are this certain way. And in jobs, you're supposed to be this certain way. And we don't leave room for that divergence or that creativity or that type of genius or that type of intelligence. And I think that that's a huge mistake that we're making. I don't know.
I think something, well, you always say, I don't know, after you say like eloquent statements, because it's like, you're like, oh yeah, I just wrote a whole soliloquy about the importance of art, but I don't know, maybe
because I could be wrong. I don't know. Maybe this is just my opinion, and someone else might be like, oh, that person from Appel Farm was really wacky. She said all this really strange stuff about science. And
well, it resonates with me because I am someone who is also neurodiverse, and I'm surrounded by people who are neurodiverse. I have mild dyslexia. My brother has dyscalculia. He has dysgraphia, and he is probably on the spectrum, but he's older, so we never really got him tested. And I'm surrounded by people with ADHD, and they thrive in the arts because that is where they feel the most comfortable. Mm-hmm. And it just really resonated with me a lot.
Okay. Yeah, I agree.
I feel like if other students were watching this, because I know this is a teacher guided thing, but if other students were watching this, they would feel that as well. So any last comments before we close down the stream, because we are trying to keep to about 45 minutes?
I'm good. I said a lot, so
but it was all wonderful.
All right, good.
Okay, everyone. Thank you so much for all the people who came. Thank you, Kristina, for coming on. Wonderful knowledge that we have gained, and wonderful community that we have gained. And be sure to check out, you can check out the video that we watched earlier today. It'll be on YouTube right after we get off this call on its own. And then we will also be doing a webinar tomorrow. So go on to Arts at NJ's social medias and check out the webinar, which is happening for SEL as well tomorrow. So awesome. And just enjoy your National Arts Ed Week.
Woohoo! Thanks, Jocelyn.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.